the fellows of the Local Pathways Fellowship, also in the name of the Memorandum of Understanding that the MUFPP signed with the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network, youth. So we're here and we're very happy to present briefly to you what the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact is about. So we're talking about of the first global joint declaration of mayors that was launched in 2015 to address food-related issues at city level. So for the first time, mayors around the world, and today we have arrived to 145 signatory cities, engaged themselves in the implementation of a more sustainable urban food systems through a framework of actions that was specifically designed by and for local authorities. So this is an important aspect that I'd like you to always consider. And the pact so was written with the help of a qualified technical team and advisory group back in 2014, and we are today launching the third annual gathering of our cities. So I will leave the floor to Cécile, who will be more detailed, explaining how we localize food-related SDGs.
Thank you, David, for this introduction. Thank you, Dan, for hosting this webinar, and welcome to you all. My name is Cecilia, and I work for the Secretariat of the Milan Urban Policy Pact. Before we get started, I would like that you think about the following questions. That are, do you think that your field is somehow related to food policy? I have been reading your profiles, and you came from quite different backgrounds, but just bear in mind these questions. To which degree do you think that food is connected to other subjects in general? So we can maybe discuss about these two questions later during the Q&A session. So the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact was launched by the Mayor of Milan, and it was signed during the Milan Expo 2015 on 15 October by around 100 mayors around the world. MUFPP, as David said, is the only global joint declaration of mayors, so of cities, on urban food policies. And it commits cities to work together to develop more sustainable, fair, safe, climate-friendly, and inclusive urban food systems. Today, our signatory cities are 145, representing thus over 450 million citizens all around the world. We always welcome new signatory cities. I mean, the pact is open to all those cities who want to commit themselves, who want to take this challenge. As you can see, we have a quite different geographical distribution. Of course, Europe is more represented because, yeah, I mean, the networking, yeah, the pact was launched in European cities, and the networking is, of course, easiest when you are, I mean, closer, geographically closer. But as you can see, Africa and Latin America are quite well represented. I know that many of you come from East Asia, Southeast Asia, and Oceania, as well as South and West Asia. And yeah, we have 17 cities from those geographical areas. So why the city of Milan started in 2014, late 2014, working on food and sustainability? Why these two things? First of all, Milan has had, the city of Milan had a local commitment with its citizens and wanted to develop its own food policy. at the same time, Milan was going to host the Universal Exhibition, Milan Expo 2015, which theme was Feeding the Planet, Energy for Life. So the Universal Exhibition was focused on food and sustainability. Then I will give you some background information that I think is nothing new for you, but we are in a definition that can be, sadly defined as a perfect storm regarding our future, and especially related to food, because by 2050 we will be 9 billion if population growth rate will continue as it is now. So this means that by 2050 the food demand will increase by 60%, which is, 60% more food demand by 2050. We live in a world where right now 2 billion people are overweight or obese, and at the same time, in the same planet, 795 million are underweight or undernourished, but yet 33%, so 1/3 of the food which is produced, it is wasted. Producing food uses 70% of our freshwater resources worldwide, and it uses 30% of energy. And the production of food delivers 25% of greenhouse gases emissions, which all these numbers are quite impressive, and they will bring us to affirm quite clearly that we need a transformation toward a more sustainable future, and that food plays a central role in it. Then, of course, Milan, when started to work on food and sustainability, was well aware about the international agenda and international commitment. For sure, the Juncker priorities of the European Union, which are quite food-related. Then, of course, 2016, the World Food Day of FAO was dedicated to climate and food and agriculture, with the claim climate is changing, food and agriculture are too, which is quite, true, of course. And the international panel of experts on climate change priorities, such as which some are connected with the COP21, so the climate agreement of Paris, and of course the Sustainable Development Goals. We will explain more in detail. We will enter into more details later about the SDGs. So the path toward the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact was a quite articulated one, because it was launched, this challenge was launched by the mayor of Milan during the C40 summit in Johannesburg in August 2014. So the mayor of Milan launched this challenge to his colleagues from all around the world, and sister cities and partner cities. So a core group of 46 cities decided to work together in writing the pact. They did it with the guidance of international experts and the advisory board composed by international organizations such as some UN agencies, the FAO of course, but also UN Habitat and World Health Organization, some DGs of the European Union, experts from the academia, the NGOs, civil society, so a quite group composed by people coming from different backgrounds. So altogether they materially wrote the pact, which was signed in Milan at the end of the Expo, near by the end of the Expo, and the day after it was delivered to the former UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. Meanwhile, the process towards having its own city food policy was going on, so we can call it a double parallel process because it came from a top-down push, so mayors' engagement and participation with the Milan Pact, and at the same time with a bottom-up push and approach by citizens and civil societies. Stepping back to the Sustainable Development Goals, I'm quite sure that you all know what they are. Anyway, they are 17 global goals with 169 specific targets. They are agreed upon under a resolution of the General Assembly in New York on 25th September 2015, and they were adopted by all nations. And I think that connected to the negotiations in the adoption of the Sustainable Development Goals, a sentence stated by the former UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, it's quite symbolic and important. He said, "We don't have plan B because there is no planet B." So, bearing this in mind, we can ask ourselves, what role does food play in this transition, towards a more sustainable future? Here you can see this graph, which was made by Johan Rockström, which is the director of the Stockholm Resilience Center, and Pavan Sudekev, his colleagues. They presented in the last EAT forum in Stockholm last year a new lenses to see Sustainable Development Goals, and they show how they are all linked in a way or another to food. And of course, in New York General Assembly, we all agreed on ending hunger, so we immediately think that the connection between food and SDGs is only on SDG 2, which is ending hunger. But we all know that there is no food security without recognizing that life below the water is absolutely linked to food security. In fact, I would like that you have a look at this chart. It is quite impressive because it shows how aquaculture production and especially wild production has grown in the last 77 years, which is something quite scary because, yeah, you just see the graph and it is quite scary. And we know today that nearly 3 billion people rely on fish as a major source of proteins. And overall, fisheries and aquaculture assure the livelihoods of 10–12% of the world population, and a quite big amount of world population lives beside the sea. So we clearly see the connection between food security and life below water. We also know that marine vertebrate population declined by 49% between 1970 and today. 49%, it's, I mean, we can say the half. So we fish half of fishes in worldwide seas and oceans. And we also know that 85% of the world's fisheries, 85, have been pushed beyond their biological limit of reproduction, of being able to ensure the continuity of the species. So we know that there are fewer fish in the sea today than ever before. And this is, of course, the main reason. It is overfishing. This is the main reason, but not only. Of course, the rise of sea temperature plays a big role, and we all know that rising of sea temperature is because of us, I mean, because of human beings. Also, oceans acidification, plastic pollution, the scarcity of protected areas and sanctuaries, which brings to biodiversity loss, mangrove loss, and the coral bleaching. All these factors are because of humans. So basically it is our fault. I invite you to read the FAO State of the World Fishery and Aquaculture Report, but I also like very much the WWF Living Blue Planet report, which has very impressive infographic. I mean, the WWF reports are really well done, not only the Living Blue Planet report, but there are many others on forests, on many biodiversity, species, and many other subjects. So I invite you to have a look. They are all online and free. So life below water, of course, is connected to food security, but so as life on land. So protect, restore, and promote sustainable use of terrestrial ecosystem, sustainably manage forests, combat desertification, and halt and reverse land degradation and halt biodiversity loss. And talking about biodiversity loss, just have a look at this picture. This picture, which is really depressing, was taken in Cerrado in Brazil, and it shows how the forests in Brazil have been cutted and continue to be cutted for agricultural purposes. In the case of Brazil, I think that you all may know, and if you don't, it's a good time to be aware of it, that especially in Cerrado, forests are being cutted not just to grow food for us, for human, but to make food for animals. So these are all soy plantation to grow, to give to animals. So just think about how meat production then does to nature. Here you can have a graph, you can compare, I mean, the extension of the forest. There are some data here, such as today, 1.6 billion people rely on forests because, of course, they are central and essential to life, supporting wild species and promoting food and resources. And we just said that agriculture remains the most significant driver of global deforestation. Today, 40% of land surface is used for food production. And since we are since we will be 9 billion people by 2050, and if the business as usual scenario of our population growth, but also about our consumption, will bring us to use 70% of global land surface for food production, 70%. Already with 40% we destroyed around 40% of forests. So this is quite scary numbers. So we are talking about agriculture and food security. Of course, agriculture is quite connected with water because we use water to make our food grow. And when we talk about food security is not only having access to food, but also to clean water. So SDG 6 is also very well connected. I invite you to go on Google and to search for water footprint. Water footprint is the amount of water that you use to produce a particular, every kind of products. You can have the water footprint also of paper, but now we are focusing on food, of course. So just have a look to these numbers. It is it has been calculated that to produce one apple, we use 70 liters of water. Those 70 liters, of course, include all the food, all the production cycle of the apple. So growing the tree and picking the apple, transporting it, washing it, using plastic to cover the apple before that the apple is delivered in our table. So one apple, 70 liters. Just have a look on one piece of cheese or one beef stack. As you can see, for one beef stack, more or less, I mean, it's an average, it's calculated for 4,650. So it is very, the SDG 6 is quite well connected to clear water and sanitation. And regarding food security, just remember that today in our planet 1.2 billion people lack access to clean drinking water. So I see from the chat that somebody is having a trouble with the audio. It's Chandrima which is having trouble with the audio. I don't know if someone else, but anyway, so SDG number 6.
Can you try to disconnect and reconnect again, or try to use a dialing numbers? Sorry, Cecilia, please go ahead.
Yeah. Can I go ahead?
Please, yes, please. Sorry for interruption.
No worries, no worries. I hope that Chandrima could hear now out. Right. So, clear water and sanitation, water footprint. I invite you to go on Google, and there are many water footprint calculator, and so you can also check your lifestyle and checking your water footprint lifestyle, which can be very scary, but it's important to raise awareness on this. Then, of course, we talked about water and food security, and all of these issues are connected with SDGs number 13, because the SDGs number 13, it is about climate actions. Of course, I mean, the threat to food security and food safety are because of desertification, which is a consequence of climate change, which is a consequent loss of biodiversity, soil degradation and pollution, rise of sea level, extreme weather conditions, oceans acidification, scarcity of fresh water availability, and drought, which is, yeah, extreme weather condition. So we can easily say that climate change will affect, and I mean, I used here the future, but we can easily use the present, because climate change now affects all 4 dimensions of food security, which are food availability, food accessibility, food utilization, and food system stability. I invite you to read the FAO report on the 4 dimensions of food security and how they are all connected, and how they are affected by climate change. So agriculture, forestry, fisheries, so I mean the way we get our food, it is, yes, affected by climate change, but all these activities, of course, they contribute also to climate change by the emission of greenhouse gases. And you can see from the chart, the pie chart, that agriculture and especially animal production, meat production and dairy production are the most big emitters of greenhouse gases emissions. So again, these leads us toward the next SDGs, which is SDGs number 12, responsible consumption. Of course, after having heard all of this, how our behavior and how we produce, we buy and choose food, and all the consequences that all these actions have on the planet and on our lives, of course, we must speak about responsible consumption. Of course, these SDGs is not just about food, but food, I mean, it's the only things that every human being does every day. So it has a very big impact. And talking about responsible consumption is not only responsible towards the planet, but towards also ourselves. So food, it is absolutely, and our diets are absolutely connected with SDGs number 3, which is good health and well-being. We all know that many non-communicable diseases or obesity are a consequence of a bad diet. So SDGs 3 is linked to food, as well as SDGs number 1, no poverty, so ending poverty in all its forms and everywhere. Here, in this image, you can see the different faces that poverty can have. Just to remember you, but I think that these are not new data for you, that nearly 2 billion people are obese or underweight or overweight, and 795 million people are undernourished. Obesity worldwide has more than doubled since 1980s. These are WHO data. And this can be surprising, but it is a fact that micronutrient deficiency affects both developing and developed countries. So also SDGs 1 is connected to food. And when we think about food and how it is grown, and if we think where it is grown, especially in rural society or in many African, let's think about Africa, most of the food is grown by women. So here we attend to SDGs number 5, which is gender equality. And how can we achieve SDGs 5 if not on working on SDGs 10, which is reduced inequalities? And also to focus, of course, on SDGs 8, because agriculture and the food industry provides billions of jobs worldwide. So those are also connected to food. So we just saw that the majority of SDGs are food related in a way or another. And this is very important to keep in mind that, I mean, since a few years ago, just talking about food was just talking about food production and per hectare productivity. So a very limited approach just on the production of the food. But if we embrace a more comprehensive approach, it is clear that we need an holistic approach, a system thinking towards food policy, where local governance plays a crucial role in shaping the global food system. So we need a more comprehensive approach, because talking about food, it is talking about, of course, agriculture and forestry and fisheries, but it is also talking about culture, about education, about international affairs and development, about employment, jobs, about social inclusion, about law, consumer and civil society, trade, transport, logistics, environment and climate change, of course, public health, food services, retail and distribution. So we can clearly see that talking about food is not talking about just production. So the data we just saw poses us in front of scary challenges and growing responsibility that we all have. But at the same time, I mean, there is worldwide growing awareness about the importance of the challenges that we have to face, and growing opportunity also. We need to see, I mean, cities were considered most of the time as the main causes of many problems. But cities can be also part of the solutions and can be also drivers of change, can be laboratory to find innovative solutions. And we can see urbanization as an opportunity for advancing in sustainable development. The Milan Urban Food Policy Pact offers a framework of action. It is composed in two main parts. I guess you had the chance at least to have a look at it before the webinar. So there is a preamble and then there is a framework for action, which is divided into 6 categories: governance, sustainable diet and nutrition, social and economic equity, food production, food supply and distribution, waste reduction and management. All these categories are intended to embrace the complexity of the food system, of the urban food system, and to cover the different steps of the food system. Each category then lists some recommended actions for local authorities, 37 in total. So the Pact, it is an inspirational framework for cities, for city officials, for mayors that want to work on their food system. And it is also a platform for cities to exchange ideas, solutions. I mean, the mission of the Pact is to enable and facilitate this exchange. Quite briefly, this is our structure and governance. You can see different layers of governance: the Assembly of all signatory cities, the steering committee, which is composed by 13 cities, the president, which for 2 years is the city of Milan, vice president Buenos Aires, the secretariat that deals with all these different layers of governance and with our network and partners. Here I listed some of our activities. Of course, the main are the organization of the MUFPP annual gathering and mayor summit. This year will be in Valencia, Spain, at the end of October. Then the organization of the Milan Pact Awards, which are intended to award the signatory cities best practice. Then we liaise with signatory cities. We participate in study and reports on food in cities. We participate to the EU platform on food waste and losses. We have many collaboration with the FAO on developing a monitoring framework for cities and a good practice repository. Thanks to the MUFPP, our partner Eurocities established a working group on food, as well as C40 that established a food network, city food network group, let's say. And then we do some advocacy and communication activities. Here I listed some of the best practice, the winner of the last edition. And as you can see, I mean, all of them are dealing with the different aspects of the foods, of the complexity of the food systems. So you can clearly see that many SDGs are in a way or in another recalled in the city's best practice, and those are all clear examples of how cities localized SDGs and operationalized SDGs in their territory. Because at the end, MUFPP is just finding solutions, local solutions for global issues. So now we will have a short Q&A session, but I invite you to visit our website. I invite you to like our Facebook page, which is at its beginning. And I invite you to write us if you have any further questions or some, I don't know, if you want to write us, this is our email address, and we will be happy to answer you. So if you have any questions, please go ahead.
Thank you, Ceci and David. So now I'll open the floor for our fellows to ask any questions on the work of MUFPP or more generally food policy and its relationship with other SDGs. So any questions? Katrina, I saw that you wrote the questions. Do you want to ask it, unmute yourself and ask the questions? Hi, Katrina, can you hear me?
Yes, so the question is about the participation of the city of Berlin to the MUFPP. So we know that the city of Berlin was here in Milan in 2015, sent a delegate and signed the pact, so in person in Milan during the official ceremony. And then we have collaborated only, interacted only a few times with their offices. So we cannot actually say that there have been any specific contributions. Also, we are checking now, but they did not participate last year to the MUFPP Milan Pact Awards. So we know that maybe they will attend the annual gathering in Valencia in October 2017, so next October.
Yeah, some of the cities are really engaged in the networking. I mean, for them, the networking part is quite interesting, maybe for political reasons or maybe for technical reasons. Some other cities, we know that they are developing their own food strategy, but without sharing with other cities. So, I mean, since the MFP is a non-binding pact, I mean, we are open for cooperation, but some cities are less active in networking. So the next question is, how do mayors join the Urban Food Policy Pact? What is the procedure? Yeah, the procedure is quite easy. Normally, there should be an interest clearly stated by the mayor's office. Can be the mayor itself, but normally it's from its office. So normally the mayor's office contact us, and we send and explain why the city want to join the pact. Normally, if they already have, they send us their food policy or strategy, and or share any relevant documents about, and especially they share the reasons why they want to join the pact. Then we send a subscription form that has to be filled and signed by the mayor and get back to us. Normally, of course, we will always ask a contact point, the contacts, names and contacts of the mayor, so at the political level. But since the problem in the municipality often is that when a mayor changes, some of the work can be lost. So the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact try to overcome this problem by asking within the municipality a person that we call focal point, which is someone who works in the municipality, and it is not a political nominee, so we can ensure the continuity of the activities even if the administration change.
Okay, then the other question that we have received is, how can MUFPP compel cities to act? As Cecile explained before, subscribing the pact is, the pact is a non-binding pact, so cities voluntarily subscribe it, and then it is left to their own choice how much they want to contribute, how much they want to proceed in following the framework for action and implementing any of the suggested actions. Normally, of course, each city has their own specificities, have their own, let's say, sometimes even emergencies or challenges. So each city is free to act as they want. We are always actually very willing to provide support, and most of all to provide contacts among cities. So when a city asks for a specific challenge or problem, we try to single out other cities that faced the same problems. We put them in contact, and hopefully both cities can help each other tackling again the problem.
One of the way we have to stimulate mayor's action toward food policy is the Milan Pact Awards, which is not compelling, of course, but can be appealing. So, well, appealing, okay, the monetary award, the amount is not so high, but it is, I mean, a good start for cities, and then the monetary award has to be used in delivering technical assistance for sharing the practice with another cities. So the awards can be, I mean, can push mayors and cities toward action without compelling it, of course. There is nothing binding.
Yes, so in other words, yeah, we want to stimulate a virtuous kind of circle of actions.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
We have
Thank
another
you so much.
question,
Yes.
which is the benefit from joining the Urban Food Policy Pact. So as we have mentioned, one of the benefits is that signatory cities can participate to the MPA, to the Milan Pact Awards. So to specify better, the prizes, the awards consist in two monetary prizes of 15,000 euros each. And at the same time, when they enter the network of cities, they enter, as we explained, a network where we favor exchange of best practices. Signatory cities can also participate to the annual gathering and mayor summit, which is a way, once again, to meet in person both the city officials and politicians, and to personally exchange and their experiences and to do networking among cities.
Then signatory cities can benefit from the technical assistance from the FAO, because as said before, we are developing a monitoring framework for cities. So most of the time, especially medium small cities, have problems in having the data that are so useful in order to inform decision making. So the FAO is providing in partnership with us this service, and we are developing the good practice repository, which is, I mean, in a way to capitalize all this knowledge, because so many times cities are finding solutions for their cities, but and they, or sometimes they are facing a problem which has been already solved by another cities, but they just don't know it. So again, the networking, it's very good. Then just a second. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's all. And of course, to have, I mean, the pact as a quite big political weight, because the pact represents 145 cities all around the world. So, for example, it is a good platform from the political point of view, is a good platform for doing advocacy and communication. These are more or less all the benefits of cities in joining the Pact.
Hello.
So, yeah, we leave the floor to Justus.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the presentation. My question is more to do with citizen participation. Most of these policies, and actually what I have experienced with SDGs is citizen involvement and what I may call awareness of what these goals intend to achieve. I wonder how or what plans are there to popularize the Milan Urban Pact, because personally I believe it is very important for urban food security and food security as a whole. So how can we popularize this? And this is not a problem specifically to urban, to Milan Urban Pact, but also to the SDGs as a whole. Then my other question would be when is the next World Food Day and how can one participate? Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for your questions. Tell me if I did understand correctly. You are asking how you, fellows, young fellows, can make the pact more popular within your city. Was that your question?
Yeah, that can be part of the solution, but my question is more how to involve citizens in urban centers to get involved in implementation of the pact.
Yeah, well, this is it depends really a lot in cities, in the culture, in the political system, in the governance system. I mean, the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact, there are 145 all around the world, so very, very different. We have African cities, Chinese, European, Latin American, and every city has its own specificity. For example, we can say that from Latin America, most of the time, cities in Latin America, their focus is in citizen engagement and food as social inclusion. So in many of these cities, the link between social inclusion and social issues and food is quite clear. Then there are geographic area where maybe other themes are more important. For example, food related to climate change. So it really depends on different cities and of the national and regional and local context.
Yes, also in some cases cities can have a more top-down approach. So they could have some campaigns in order to promote food policy issues. So it really differs a lot among different cities, how they want to promote within their citizens the importance of food-related issues. So there can be campaigns, for example, to reduce food waste. There can be campaigns for more sustainable diets. It really depends. Let's say, we can say that, for example, in England, mainly the most popular issues is the fight against obesity. So cities try all the time to involve their citizens in eating healthier foods. So they implement different projects and programs to foster this. So the other question was about the next World Food Day. So the FAO World Food Day is normally the 14th of October. It can slightly change if it happens on a Saturday or on a Sunday. Normally this year it will be the week before we are hosting our event in Valencia. So I will tell you now exactly which date. So we are hosting the MUFPP annual gathering on 19th, 20th and 21st of October. So the week before it will be the World Food Day. Altre domande su the private sector. I'm reading the following questions, okay? Okay, so I can see my city is not yet a signatory city of the pact. Maybe as a city councillor, I can raise this in our councillor meeting and encourage, for sure. We believe, and in many cities, the issue of the implementation of a sustainable food system has been actually raised by the city council and by city councillors. I must say that the same happened also in Milan. So our city councillors and our city council was very much engaged in the process. So both our mayor and both the city council were engaged. So I think that for sure, as a city councillor, you can promote this issue and you could be a great advocate for your city.
I would say just if you want to cooperate and learn more about MUFPP, feel free to email me. I can put you guys in touch so that you can maybe discuss a little bit more. You can maybe perhaps get some information from MUFPP that when they pitch the pact to cities and see how you can facilitate the discussion within your city in your capacity as a city councillor.
Yeah, that would be great. That would be great. Thank you. Maybe my final question would be: how do you encourage the local pathways fellows to participate in promoting and popularizing the Milan Urban Pact? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact is normally, stuff of mayors, but also stuff of citizens. So when you have an active civil society or NGOs or, whatever kind of organization or even individuals who do some advocacy towards with its city administration, of course it is very good. Normally cities are more and more, have more and more open ears towards what's happening within the civil society and citizen organizations. So we absolutely encourage you to talk about the pact, to talk about the pact within the city administration or to signal the pact to NGOs or civil society organizations and to promote it
as a tool.
Yes, as a tool, because really it is a tool.
Yeah, we are actually also aware that there are many cities that are using our framework for action to implement actions, and at the same time, for different reasons, they are not going to sign the pact. But we are in any case, let's say, very proud that this framework of action is being used as a guidance or as the real guidelines, or they are ready guidelines for anybody who wants to use them. So at the same time, we don't even force cities to sign the pact, but they reported to us in many cases that These guidelines were very useful for many cities to implement their own food policy strategy, and at the same time they reported that there was no intention for different reasons for them to sign it. But for us, it's perfectly fine. It is a public document, so they can read it and each city can use it as best as they can.
Do you have any other question?
Yes, we can see that there is a question on the private sector. Yeah, we cannot answer on behalf of all MUFPP cities, but we can answer, of course, for what has happened in the city of Milan. As said, the path, the process toward our own food policy was very articulated, and it entailed the multi-stakeholder engagement. So, of course, the private sector, but also CSOs and the academia, the CTO, etc. Regarding the private sector, of course, it is very important in the city of Milan, within the city of Milan, because especially, Milan is an industrialized city, but it is also a very rural city, because in its peri-urban area and metropolitan area, there are a lot of small, medium food producers. So food producers and food distributors were very much engaged in writing in participating in the food policy, in the local food policy, especially because they really wanted to be integrated in this more comprehensive strategy. And the city of Milan tried with many, I can say quite successfully, in the designing and implementation of its strategy to connect rural and urban areas using the private sector. So the private sector was much engaged in this process.
So do we have time for one more questions? Does anyone want to ask? I have another question. No? Okay, so thanks very much. Oh, sorry. Please go ahead. Yeah, the final question.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Okay. Hello, this is Umesh here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, hi. So my question was actually specific to food and climate change. So you mentioned that the climate change has its effect on our food security and the whole sustainability. But at the same time, production of food is causing climate change as well due to consumption. So how far do you think, like in your interactions with all the local governments, are they aware of this particular aspect, this loop which goes around, and they incorporate it in their policies?
Sorry, we couldn't hear you very well. Can you please repeat the question?
Yeah, so I'll just repeat it. As you mentioned that the food security is drastically affected by the climate change. But at the same time, production of food is also driving climate change. Like it is a cause of climate change. So it is a cycle of sorts. So how do you exactly go ahead and address this, and how far are the mayors or local governments aware about this particular thing so that they could incorporate proper steps in the policy?
Yeah, actually the key, it is SDGs number 12, such as responsible consumption. Of course, First of all, there is our food security, so nobody is saying that we have to stop eating because food producing is emitting greenhouse gases. But towards a sustainable consumption of food and a sustainable use of our fish stocks and forests, we can achieve the fact that we can achieve feeding 9 billion people without consuming and pushing the planet's reproduction beyond its biological limits. So I would say that the key is SDG number 12. And you ask what is the role of mayors in this? Well, I mean, mayors can promote sustainable consumption with education, so educational activities, of course, but mayors can also be, for example, have a quite strong role with the GPP. GPP is green public procurement. So as you know, schools mayors are responsible of the school's canteens. For the city of Milan is 80,000 meals a day, so it has a quite huge impact. If a city uses green criteria, so sustainable criteria in its public procurement, they can really make an impact. For example, the city of Copenhagen switched from 20 to 90% organic food in its public procurement. So you see, cities can be really can have a big impact and can be really drivers of change. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, you did. It was quite insightful. Thank you.
We have our final questions around the SDG 16, peace and justice. Let me repeat the questions from our fellow. So basically, she's asking whether MUFPP has been considering how can food security can contribute to reducing crimes, violence, etc. So a question about the relationship between food policy and SDG 16.
Yeah, there is a quite clear connection because, of course, when there is no peace, it means that there is war. It means that war brings poverty, and of course, we all know how poverty affects food security. So, of course, we didn't mention it in our presentation, but SDG 16 is absolutely connected with food. Again, regarding crimes, I'm very happy that you mentioned this topic because, for example, in Italy, as you know, we have a problem with the criminality, which is called mafia. I guess that the most of you knows it. And mafia, so it's organized crime. And it is not like in the past with the guns or, 007 activities, but it is now, the mafia is infiltrating economic sectors. And of course, the food sector is really appealing. So with the food counterfeiting or exploiting people, workers in the fields, and so on and so forth. So yes, also the connection between food and crime, it is a very interesting one, and in Italy we have lots to tell you about it, sadly.
Great. Thank you, Cici and Debbie again for giving this fantastic presentation. I hope our fellows through your presentation can not only learn a little bit more about the work of MUFPP and how you engage with cities, but also understand how different SDGs are interrelated with each other and how MUFPP as an example of international collaboration among cities, both using an online platform like webinar and online working groups, and which is actually quite similar to how the local Pact Fellowship is organizing, and how to exchange best practices and good ideas among each other. So if any of the fellows, if you have any additional questions, or if legit about collaboration with MUFPP, drop me a line, and then we'll be happy to put you guys in touch with each other and see how we can kickstart with additional conversation. So thank you once again. I know it's quite late for some of us, especially those in Southeast Asia. So thank you once again for attending this webinar, and thank you again, David and Cici, for giving the webinar. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you to all of you. All the best. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Have a good day.